In 2023, affordable vehicles are few and far between, and it gets even more difficult trying to find a brand new car or crossover at around $30,000 that you actually want to own and drive on a daily basis. Today I'm sitting next to the 2023 Subaru Crosstrek, and believe it or not, this vehicle has been around for almost 10 years now. I cannot believe it has been a decade. Now, of course, within that time, we have seen a couple facelifts and updates to the exterior and interior, but the very essence of this crossover has remained the same. And in fact, it's the Crosstrek that has single-handedly changed our perceptions towards the subcompact crossover market, and maybe has raised the bar to new heights that other brands just haven't met yet. This vehicle is practical, it's affordable, it's desirable, and all-around capable, which is attributes that not a lot of competitors actually possess. And in this video, I want to take a deep dive into the 2023 Subaru Crosstrek, see what $30,000 actually gives you. Of course, I am taking a look at the Limited today, so that'll be just above $30,000, but everything remains the same. The fact that it has 8.7 inches of ground clearance, super symmetrical all-wheel drive system, but also a powertrain that I think really fits a vehicle of this size. We're also going to see how it compares to rivals in this market, and also see why, if you are looking at buying an affordable crossover right now in 2023, then maybe taking a look at the Subaru Crosstrek might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Subaru of Wakefield in Wakefield, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. The link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Subaru inventory. And speaking of inventory, Subaru of Wakefield is home to the largest selection of brand new Subarus in New England. If you are looking for a Crosstrek, a Forester, or an Outback, Subaru of Wakefield will have you covered. They also have a wide selection of used vehicles as well. So if you are looking at buying a brand new daily driver, definitely check out what they have. Also, before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. Subcompact crossovers are essentially the econoboxes of our time, usually lacking in every key metric for how we rate what a quality vehicle is in 2023. The Crosstrek, on the other hand, really has bucked the trend, where only a handful of rivals, if any, can list the same amount of features and capabilities as Subaru's most affordable crossover. Built on the same platform and design as the Impreza hatchback, Subaru duplicated the blueprint of their beloved small car, lifted the suspension, and over time developed a number of packages and trims that made the Crosstrek very appealing. In 2023, there's a number of competitors in this segment trying to do the same, but Subaru still might be offering the best vehicle for around 30 grand. Starting off with pricing, the Subaru Crosstrek we have today is the Limited, coming in at a base cost of $29,495. But if you're not looking to max out your budget, a premium or sport in the mid 20 grand range might be the best bang for your buck. Unlike so many within this price range, the Crosstrek isn't boxy, uninspiring, or over the top with the styling, as Subaru rarely takes risks with their designs. Due to its smaller size, some may question if it's still practical, and as we'll find out, you may be surprised how spacious the interior really is. A major selling point is the class-leading ground clearance of 8.7 inches, matching the Forester and Outback to be a compact yet capable crossover that's ready for the challenges you may face, whether it's during the winter or when going on that outdoor adventure. Where Subaru hit a home run with the Crosstrek is the overall design, and throughout its 10 years of being in production, Subaru has maintained the same look and body lines, which is kind of rare in this segment. What they also did that guaranteed the Crosstrek's long-term success was not directly marketing the subcompact to younger buyers, and instead reiterated time and again that it's a capable crossover for those on a budget, and isn't much different fundamentally speaking compared to the Forester. What differentiates the Crosstrek from the Impreza, besides the ground clearance, is the plastic cladding found throughout for a rugged appearance, and the sportier grille design that adds some character to this crossover. For the Limited, this Crosstrek is equipped with steering responsive LED headlights and LED fog lights, which is an upgrade over the halogens found on lower trims. Moving over to the side profile, this model is equipped with 18-inch alloy wheels, but 17s do come standard for the premium and sport, which would be our recommendation if you prefer a softer ride quality and less road noise. Suspension-wise, the Crosstrek handles the bumps and imperfections exceptionally well for a small vehicle, and should have no problem in light off-roading situations. You'll have body color side mirrors with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. Then coming around to the back, as we saw for the front fascia, the plastic cladding and ground clearance really is the only alteration to this vehicle compared to the Impreza. While the argument could be made that it's simply a lifted hatchback, this road presence has become timeless, and for buyers who don't want a car but also don't need a compact crossover, the Crosstrek is a great compromise in that regard, where you can have your cake and eat it too. Under the hood, you have the choice between two powertrains for the full gas-powered models, where the base and premium trims are powered by a 2-liter Boxer 4-cylinder engine, whereas the Sport and Limited had the larger 2.5-liter that's offered in the Forester and Outback, which produces 182 horsepower and 176 pound-feet of torque, and both powertrains are paired with a CVT. Subcompact crossovers are known to have lackluster performance, but as you drive around in the Crosstrek, it's all around competent, whether entering highways or commuting through the city. While not as refined as its larger siblings, the Crosstrek does an outstanding job of playing its role to perfection, and not feeling like cheap transportation. An added bonus with this crossover is that Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive system does come standard, and if that's not enough, the fuel economy of 28 miles per gallon in the city and 34 miles per gallon on the highway makes the Crosstrek economical as well. Stepping inside, since we're featuring the Limited, we have leather-trimmed upholstery, offering a premium feel. However, if you opt for the Sport, you have the StarTex water-resistant fabric seats, which will be far easier to clean. The driver's side is power adjustable, whereas passengers will have to find their ideal seating position. Surprisingly, these seats do provide a good amount of support and bolstering, which isn't typically seen in this market. Then of course, in front of you, you'll have a small digital display in between the analog gauges. But just like the Forester, you have the secondary information screen that sits just above the user interface, where your turn-by-turn navigation is displayed with traffic sign recognition, local weather, and it also shows what safety systems are activated. And you can scroll through this screen by pressing the info button mounted on the steering wheel. Then as we take a look at the infotainment system, the 2023 model offers both a 6.5 or 8-inch touchscreen, which will be replaced for the 2024 model year to give buyers the same head unit that's now found in the WRX, Outback, and Ascent. In the meantime, we have the optional 8-inch display that comes equipped with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility, the Harman Kardon premium audio system, and onboard navigation. Thanks to the quick access buttons mounted below and the physical dials for the volume and tuning, the Crosstrek's interior is very user-friendly. Then of course, you also have knobs for the climate control to provide a balanced mixture of modern tech and an analog feel. As always, you will have a rear backup camera with trajectory, and standard for the Limited is rear cross-traffic alert and reverse automatic braking. Making our way towards the center console, you'll have a cubby for a smartphone or a loose change, where you'll find a couple of USB inputs and a 12-volt outlet. Placed conveniently between the front seats will be the switch for the 2-level heated seats, and the button for X mode, which activates hill descent control to help tackle winter road conditions or the off-road. For the center storage compartment, you'll have enough room for smaller items, which some subcompact crossovers don't give you. And rounding out the front seating area, above will be a power moonroof to let in some natural light and air into the cabin. As we move on to the second row, we're going to start off on the passenger side. And this seat has been adjusted all the way back, and I've placed it on a bit of a recline. And I have a good amount of legroom to work with here. Now, I'm not the tallest person out there, I'm around 5'5". But why is all this important, especially when taking a look at a subcompact crossover? Well, most vehicles in this market and price range are not conducive for a family. They're not very spacious at all. And even though you have the hatch or you have the better practicality, you just can't have average-sized adults sit in the second row comfortably or maybe even have a family. Now, the Crosstrek is a bit of a different story because it is closely related to the Impreza, and the Impreza is relatively spacious, being a hatchback. But when you compare this to some vehicles like the Mazda CX-30 and also the Hyundai Kona, the Crosstrek is more spacious, especially when it comes to that legroom. Now, when you compare this to the CX-30 and look at it on paper, there's only a 0.2 of an inch difference, but I'm not buying that because I have reviewed the CX-30 a number of times in the past, and I just don't think that if you want to have a child seat in the second row, it's going to work at all. But with the Crosstrek, I think it's a great option. Now, I'm not saying it's a replacement for the Subaru Forester. I think it is a more affordable alternative, but the Forester is the more family-friendly option in the crossover lineup for Subaru. But this is certainly doable, especially if you are looking for a vehicle at around $27,000 to $30,000. Now, of course, since the Crosstrek is a lifted hatchback, you're not going to have that much amount of headroom like you would find in the Forester, but there's still plenty of it for someone around my height, and I think if you're on the height of maybe 5'8" or 5'9", you should have no problem sitting back here. Then taking a look at the center seat, you are going to have an aggressive center hump, which will take away from legroom and also shoulder room. Now, the Crosstrek, being a smaller vehicle, might not be the best if you want to try squeezing in that third person. It might work on a shorter drive, but that's not what the Crosstrek has been designed to do, and it's not capable in that regard. I personally think the fact you can actually have average adults sit in the second row comfortably is already a win for this crossover. And then taking a look at the driver's side, the seat is adjusted to someone of my height, and I can just sit back here, relax, and stretch my legs a bit. Now, of course, if you are a taller person, you might not be feeling the same way, but there's still enough room where I think on a longer drive or even on a weekly commute, you can find yourself being very comfortable back here for sure. Then, of course, for a vehicle in this market and price range, we do not have two rear air vents mounted on the center console, nor do we have a 12-volt outlet or USB input. However, we do get a center armrest with two cup holders. Now, coming around to the back, no surprises here. We're not going to receive a power liftgate on this model, and we don't normally see that for vehicles in this market and price range. But what is a surprise is the 20.8 cubic feet of room behind the second row of seats. That would outclass most hatchbacks in this price range and size, but also this is better than some subcompact crossovers as well. Now, we have the box for the match to this vehicle, and that really didn't create much of an issue at all, even though I had 2 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and 2 tripods, and I still had enough room to stack on even more items. And that's the practicality that people love about this crossover, because it has the capability, it has the versatility, and if you want to go on those outdoor adventures, you want to go camping, maybe skiing and snowboarding, or maybe just going on that road trip, you can store everything back here, no problem. It's basically a Forester and an Outback, but in a smaller package. And we don't normally see that for a lot of rivals, whereas most subcompacts are just lifted hatchbacks and cars. They don't have off-road capability. They don't have any ruggedness at all. Whereas the Crosstrek is a completely different story. It's true to the Subaru brand and heritage. Then with the second row seats folded, you're looking at right around 55 cubic feet of room. Once again, giving you the practicality you're looking for in an affordable crossover. And really, if you are not using this as a family vehicle and it's just going to be your daily driver, you can store a lot of items back here, no problems. So if you're moving boxes around, or maybe you're going skiing and snowboarding, you can fit all your equipment back here, no problem. Better yet, you also have a rear cargo cover, which will keep all your valuable items out of sight. So if you are like me and you have camera gear or anything else of value, you can leave them back here and have that peace of mind knowing that no one will be able to peek in and steal what you have. On top of all this, underneath the floor mat, you have a spare tire. So if you encounter a flat on your road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. And finally, for the moment we've all been waiting for, let's hit the Crosstrek out on a test drive. So what does $30,000 get you in 2023 with the Subaru Crosstrek and it being a subcompact crossover? Because a lot of vehicles in this market and price range leave a lot more to be desired. They have underpowered 4-cylinder engines that just aren't going to get the job done. And really, subcompact crossovers today are looked at as being the modern version of econo boxes. But with the Crosstrek, you can't look at this vehicle that way. Sure, it is economical, getting around 27, 28 miles per gallon in the city and 34 miles per gallon on the highway. But with performance, it's a completely different story. With the Sport and the Limited, you get the 2.5-liter four-cylinder engine that is powering the Forester and the Outback. And with 182 horsepower and 176 pound-feet of torque, it's the perfect match. It's the perfect balance, and I think it's giving you enough power to safely get on the highway, as I just demonstrated. You also have enough power to pass slower drivers as well, and really this vehicle has a lot of confidence for a subcompact. Now, of course, it is paired with the CVT, and CVTs tend to drone. They don't mimic the gear shifts, but Subaru's done a pretty good job with their CVTs, where they are a bit more athletic and more engaging than what we've seen from some Japanese rivals and competitors in this market. Now, of course, with this vehicle being priced at around $30,000, interior insulation isn't going to match or compare to what we see from vehicles in the $40,000 to $50,000 price range. So road noise is to be expected. I do hear a lot of that at around 55 miles an hour. But this vehicle does feel pretty composed on the roadways. You don't really feel a lot of bumps or jolts at all. So it's a very comfortable daily driver. And I think that also really is enhanced by the interior quality as well, where this vehicle doesn't feel like a Hyundai Kona or even a Nissan Kicks, where the interior quality is pretty good for a vehicle in this market and price range. Now, as we're going around the rotary, one thing I do notice here with the Crosstrek is that the steering is extremely light. There's not a lot of feedback at all, but the agility is certainly there for a vehicle like this. You can definitely throw it around in the corners at around 35, 40 miles an hour. Also, even though you have the 8.7 inches of ground clearance, there's not a lot of body roll, so it does retain some sense of a lower center of gravity. It does hug the corners, and it does give you some confidence. But definitely the looseness of the steering is something you will have to get used to. Nice mimic gear shifts. Doesn't drone as much as we see from Nissan and Honda. Also, with the 2.5-liter four-cylinder engine, this is more enjoyable than the new Honda HR-V, which really was begging for more power. Also, since it is built on the same platform as the Impreza, it does feel like you're driving a hatchback. So the seating position, you do sit pretty high up because you do have the 8.7 inches of ground clearance, but you feel as though you're driving a car. So it's a nice size vehicle for people who are looking for more of a compact design, but also might not feel very comfortable driving a Subaru Ascent or an Outback. Passing those people with ease. And that right there is why the Crosstrek has become a very hot seller, because other rivals are not going to give you that at all. Nowhere close. You don't need to really put a lot of input into the steering. It stays in its lane, it stays in its line very nicely. And it just drives pretty well for a vehicle in this market. On the brakes, nice and responsive. Not a lot of travel on that brake pedal, which I really love to see for more of an affordable vehicle like this. So since we are on suburban streets, let's talk about the overall vision you have here to work with when it comes to being behind the wheel of the Crosstrek. You have a nice panoramic view. A-pillars are pretty thin, so since the Crosstrek is built on the Impreza platform, it's going to be very car-like in that regard, so no blind spots when you are approaching intersections. Then taking a look at your side mirrors, they are placed in a good spot. More importantly is that the blind spot detection is on the mirror casing itself, so that way it doesn't draw too much attention away from you. And also, I hate having that emblem on the mirror for most vehicles. So it's really great to see that Subaru did that. And looking out back, even with the headrest in the way, I can't see what's directly behind me, including that Lexus. So you have a lot of vision behind the wheel of this vehicle. Also, when it comes to interior spacing for a subcompact crossover, it's not very claustrophobic at all in this vehicle, where I think you could have two average-sized adults, pretty sizable average-sized adults, sit up front and you won't feel very claustrophobic. Going over the bumps and imperfections in the road, you really don't feel them. That's not really translating to the interior at all, which I'm really glad to see for a vehicle in this market. All in all, after this quick test drive, the Subaru Crosstrek really fits in with its surroundings, no matter where it is. Whether you're in the city or the suburbs and you're trying to maneuver your way around on those tight streets, maybe there's cars parked on both sides and there's a car coming at you, you can get out of the way, but also you can park this vehicle very easily as well. But also with the 2.5 liter four-cylinder engine, you can drive on the highway safely. You can get by slower drivers. You can really have a bit more fun with this vehicle than other subcompact crossovers in this market and price range. And it's a great option if you are somebody who likes a car or a hatchback, but you're looking for that versatility, you're looking for that ground clearance, and that's where the Subaru Crosstrek, in my mind, is a great vehicle for you, especially where a lot of subcompacts are not offering that all-around capability and practicality that the Crosstrek is giving you at around $30,000. So to wrap up my time with the 2023 Subaru Crosstrek, what are my final thoughts and takeaways for Subaru's most affordable crossover that will be due for a refresh when the 2024 model arrives later this year with a new infotainment system and a slightly new exterior design? Well, for 2023, this vehicle is still very well rounded, even though it does need to be updated a bit. But you get the super symmetrical all-wheel drive coming standard. You have 8.7 inches of ground clearance. And as I mentioned before, this is basically a Forester and an Outback in a compact and smaller design. There are no compromises with the Crosstrek. Whereas a lot of rivals, the vehicle is smaller for one, but also they're front-wheel drive based and they're not off-road worthy. Whereas the Crosstrek, you could take this off-road if you are an adventurous person, where if you want to go camping, maybe skiing and snowboarding, you can definitely do so. And as we already talked about, the Crosstrek is very practical. So it's still giving you all the basics and the attributes and intangibles that you love about the Forester and the Outback, but in a smaller and more affordable package. Also, of course, the interior, in my mind, really is the main selling point for this vehicle and why so many people are gravitating towards the Crosstrek, because a lot of subcompact crossovers, the build quality leaves a lot more to be desired. You start touching the dashboard trim and you start thinking, man, this is built very cheaply and it's not very enticing or appealing at all, especially if I'm going to be driving this on a daily basis. Whereas the Crosstrek, it's designed in a way where I think it's very conducive for someone who is outdoor oriented. So these materials are going to be very easy to clean, especially if you go with the sport trim with the StarTex water-resistant fabric seats. But with the Limited, the leather trim seats are very comfortable. They're very supportive as well. And we see that across the board for all trims in the Subaru Crosstrek lineup for 2023. This vehicle is inspiring to drive. It's fun to drive. Also, of course, you're not making any compromises, more importantly. So you're not missing out on the ground clearance or the capability, but also with the Sport and the Limited, you get the 2.5 liter four-cylinder engine, which is found in the Forester and the Outback. So you have a good amount of performance to work with, especially for a vehicle of this size. And I just think that overall, what this vehicle is giving you in 2023, especially at around $30,000, is quite a bit. Your money goes a very long way in an era where we're seeing the average transaction price well above $40,000. So this is a back to the basics approach that we just don't see anymore in this market. But also when you take a look at vehicles that are priced under $30,000, they're just not that appealing. They're just not that enticing at all. Whereas the Crosstrek is giving you everything you love about the Subaru brand, but at an attainable price point that I think a lot of buyers are certainly looking for in 2023. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.